Welcome back to the Whole Career Podcast. I'm your host, Brandon Strawn, and I'm accompanied by my wonderful co host, Sky Kellogg. Today, we have a wonderful, interesting, magnificent, it's going to be full of greatness. We have Tracey Guerrero here with us, and she is the Employee Brand Manager at Advent Health. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, thank you.
So, let me jump right in. Do you mind formally introducing yourself and giving us a brief overview of your current role?
I'm Tracey Guerrero. I'm the Employer Brand Manager with Advent Health. And my principal role is to help promote Advent Health as an employer of choice by helping to attract and retain top talent within Advent Health.
Awesome.
Perfect. So obviously, Advent Health, we are known, at least very well in Central Florida, across our other 9 states as well, for our brand. So if you could, let's jump into what employer brand means versus our brand, and kind of break down that difference for our listeners so they can get an idea of what that means.
Yeah, so our employer brand really talks to our reputation as an employer. It encompasses our values, it encompasses our mission, um, and really how our work culture internally, how we can then express it externally so that we can attract team members that would want to be part of our mission, of living our mission. And then once they're within our walls, we want to make sure that that message isn't something that just lives in externally, but really that it's an expression of how we live within Advent Health.
Perfect. Perfect. I love that answer. I think, when people hear brand, they just, especially people who haven't studied, such as myself, we have our own definitions of what that means.
Mhm.
And so I appreciate you breaking that down. So let's go back a little bit and have you tell us about your background in political science and HR management and how you were able to get to where you're at right now, being that, you maybe didn't start directly in, brand and advertising, things like that.
Yeah. So I feel like that question almost spans my entire professional career. So, so well, actually, maybe even before that, because when I went to college for my undergraduate, I'm first generation of college graduates in my family. So my parents encouraged us to go to college. But that space of career planning, I had a gap. So when I finished college, I decided to join a volunteer program that was abroad through my church, and I ended up teaching English as a second language in Ecuador. I ended up staying for 4 years and learning how to live and work and be and serve in another culture, which in the end was the best lessons I could have taken and done, really just to expand myself and really anyone's perspective outside of the prescribed world that we live in and are part of, to expand who you are and how you see other people and what serving truly means and what empathy truly means. So yeah, so once I finished that and came back, I knew I wanted to move into something where I felt like even though it was a profession, I was still serving others. I knew that something like nursing was not something that I could do. I know I have an issue with fainting, so I knew that space wasn't necessarily a good fit for me.
Cross that out.
Yeah.
So when I went back for my graduate degree in business administration, I went with a concentration in human resource management, and I did my internship at a local hospital. And within that space, I knew immediately, just with the way that team members not only serve their patients and what that means, but also the way they serve each other, and they're encouraged to grow. They're encouraged not only to grow for themselves, but also for the betterment of what they're doing for their patients, to be able to bring innovation, to be able to bring ideas and change, and grow. So once I was in that internship, I was hooked, and I knew
Mhm.
that's where I belonged. And I was also okay with starting in a position to get my foot in the door.
Right.
So I actually started as an executive assistant, um, and worked my way through projects outside of that direct role, um, within marketing and community relations, into a formal marketing role, to be able to help promote the good works of our team, promote community education, health education. So it was a great space to be, and I'm so blessed to now have rounded back to that original passion within human resources and to bring all of the learnings of being within healthcare marketing into a space where all I'm doing is amplifying the amazing work and inspired mission that our team members have, and bringing that so that we can attract the very best talent into us.
So we touched on what employer brand is and that definition, but for Advent Health, how does our employer brand also intersect with our mission?
Yeah, so our employer brand helps to express our internal culture and values, what we say, and live within our patient experience is that we want to make them feel whole in body, mind, and spirit. So our employer brand is an expression of what that means within our team members. It helps to answer for them too that question of why choose Advent Health. And Advent Health is different because our mission is our differentiator. Our mission-based, Christ-centered purpose is truly what the impetus of our brand message is as Advent Health. And so when we translate that for our team members, we see it there as well. We see it there living in the message of us seeing every aspect of our team members and helping to nourish, helping to support, giving them the best benefits that they would need, whatever aspirations they have, helping to build career paths to get to where they want to be, where they want to grow, how they'd like to influence their workspace, having that voice. So looking at each of us as individuals and finding the place and the grace for each of us to grow, lives within what our employer brand is as well.
So I know you mentioned something at the beginning, and you said an employer of choice. So that's not something that prior to working to Advent Health that I've really heard. And so employer of choice, I know that is something that drives, what you all do. What are some of the projects that you've worked on in the past that help represent, hey, we want to make sure that when our employees internally see this, or the employees that, externally that are hoping to work for us see this, they'll know that, we are someone that they really would choose to be with versus, just kind of taking what they can because it's available.
Yeah, so we do a lot of work within making sure that our things like our benefits are highlighted, that we do talk about what our mission is. But the largest and strongest voice that we have is the voice of our team members. So within that space of having spaces where our team members can share their stories, share them through social media, share them internally with our team members, share them even within um, any aspect of communications that we have, external communications within volunteer opportunities that we have. Those are the spaces that we understand are the most impactful. Especially as we know that uh, Gen Gen Z, they research,
Right.
they do their research, and a lot of their research is done online.
Yeah. And they're gonna compare.
Uh-huh. Yes, yes. So, but the strongest voice that they hear isn't necessarily something that's been polished. It's the voice of the team members. So that's having that space for storytelling is probably the most important piece of making sure we have a strong employer brand that truly builds an affinity to who we are.
And that's what you're helping to do today. right?
Yeah.
I hope.
Yeah.
Yeah, honestly, that is
Yeah.
that is true. And so whether that's our internal employees, hearing about this or listening to this podcast and learning more about what you do, right? Or it's someone, of course, externally that's hoping to be with Advent Health. So you're contributing to it, and we're contributing to it. So
Yeah.
we're on the employer brand team. So
You are.
And Tracy, everything that you've mentioned brings to mind, in traditional branding, advertising, marketing, there are metrics, there are ways to measure success. This feels like this is probably a harder space to be able to measure because there's a lot of intangible aspects to this because we're looking internally, right? So how do you measure success of our employer brand campaigns, and what are those metrics like?
So we do look at traditional HR performance indicators, like application rates, hire rates, how much we are converting prospective candidates into applicants. Those are still things that we look at. We also look at within social media. We'll look at engagement within our digital spaces. We look at how many people are clicking, how many people are showing interest. But we also have a new space that we're moving into, which is to make sure that we also have a employer brand tracker where we are surveying our communities to get an understanding of not only are they aware of who we are and what we stand for, um, and also to see how much uh, affinity they're growing towards who we are. So how much are they connecting with the message? And is it something that would then be an impetus to want to be part of our team?
Yeah.
So that's the next step that we are moving into actually over the summer.
Oh, okay, that's great.
awesome. So
Wonderful.
things to look forward to. Mhm.
Another space that we use in helping to measure success is through accredited awards. These are important to us because we recognize that these are third parties who are coming in to help evaluate what we are saying and to validate it. So when we get an award like Forbes Best in State Employer or Newsweek's Most Trustworthy Employer, those things mean something. They have worth to it because they have evaluation processes. They are accredited awards in their own right. So it makes a lot of sense for us to put a worth into that space to be able to say, okay, yes, what we are saying and what we are doing, they're both aligned.
Mhm.
So, can you walk us through the development of a new branding initiative, and how do you go from an initial idea to a fully developed storyboard?
Yeah, so the word that comes to mind is collaboration. And it really is the work of all of our teams, from our corporate brand, marketing, communications, human resources, from our talent strategy teams, and collaboration with our local marketing and communications teams as well. As we build out a campaign, we work to be aligned with our total brand messaging, and what our messages look like in the market at that moment. Um, and we work also to make sure that we're sharing the message in a way that is most effective for each market, recognizing that what we might say in Orlando and what we might say in rural Georgia might need to be either uh, might need to be shared in different ways. So, for example, in Denver, we had the opportunity to share our talent attraction, our employer brand messaging within the Denver airport. Whereas when we are in Kansas, we have had the opportunity to include our employer brand video, our commercial, within a summer theater series that's in an outdoor theater in Kansas. So, just looking for different opportunities where we partner with our local teams to make sure that the message is best used and easy to use for for our local teams to be able to carry that employer brand message that is a system-wide message.
Awesome.
Yeah. And just a follow up on that, Tracy, out of curiosity, how often do you change it? Is there a typical endpoint, like you see, okay, this doesn't look like it's making an impact anymore, or do you already have ideas planned for the next couple years? What does that look like in regards to changing what the employer brand campaign looks like?
We have had an evolving message of our employer brand, and where we are right now really is a fully aligned space. So within this year, and starting at the end of last year, we had launched the Human Spirit campaign within our brand, and this as a campaign, it really does more than just being a campaign. It's a testament to our commitment to seeing and nurturing the whole individual, body, mind, and spirit. And so what does that sound like when we bring that into the employer brand? Our employer brand lives on pillars that our team members built. Our employer brand started, our messaging and the pledge and promises that we make to our team members came out of conversations and dedicated time and input from our team members. And from that, our employer brand was born. So we don't lose that campaign over campaign. We recognize and promise to see the whole you. So what does that sound like when we move into a platform like the Human Spirit? So it made a really great, the Human Spirit and how it kind of embraces what our larger feel whole message is, also lent a lot to what our employer brand is. So as we see our employer brand through the lens of the Human Spirit, it translates into that you are the human spirit at its best. What we do every day, we are inspired by the human spirit, we live within it, and we are the human spirit at its best.
Yeah, and feel whole, and that's a great question because I've always wondered, and I've been here like 3 years, and you see different messaging. It still, in my mind, it all tracks, but like even so, feel whole or we see you, the whole you, right? Those are like two obviously different words, but have similar meanings. And then I'm wondering, okay, so are we sunsetting those? Oh, excuse me, sunsetting those and then bringing in human spirit, or is that just an addition to the feel whole and we see you, the whole you?
We, as Advent Health, are reclaiming the word wholeness. We do truly live within our mission-based purpose, seeing the whole person and caring for the whole person. So wholeness for us isn't just a word, it's an action. So that's not going away. Within a creative platform, it serves as a vehicle to help us have creative ways to reach our audience. But that main message of you belonging here as part of our team, that's not going anywhere. That space of seeing the whole you and of caring for the whole person, that's a mainstay of who we are.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And I want to touch a little bit on your core responsibilities as the employer brand manager. And you mentioned there's a lot of different teams that you work with and partnerships you have to have internally. So much goes into the employer brand, but can you give us an idea of where your responsibilities kind of begin and end, like when handoff happens, or just things that you own fully as the employer brand manager?
Yeah. So I have always struggled with saying I in a lot of spaces because maybe growing up as a twin, I've always done things as a we. So
That's easy to understand.
so, but the space of thinking that any piece of our employer brand is an I. Yes, I do have responsibilities to make sure that our creative campaigns are built out, that we have media plans, that we have ways to track the success of what we're doing, that we have ways to make sure that we evaluate our employer brand and make sure that it can grow with our team members. Those, do sit as responsibilities within my space, but I would be remiss not to make sure it's clear that there is so much collaboration that goes on in every single project that I work through. It might be with our digital team, it might be with our brand team, a combination of the two, with our design team. So there's so much with our culture and engagement team, to not only keep informed and involved, but really to be active participants in making sure that we are developing effective messaging to talk to both our internal and external audiences.
Awesome. And I know I'm kind of going off script here, but you mentioned something earlier about getting back to like the human resources space. And so just for our listeners, especially because we're a career podcast, right? Understanding that the, even within an industry such as healthcare, right, you have the tracks or the departments, right? And within that department, you could then still do what you went to school for versus saying like, hey, I don't want to join healthcare because I like marketing. Well, every company has marketing, and every company needs to have a brand team, right? And so I guess for you, and once again, I know this is off the cuff, does the human resource background now help because you are technically on a team that deals so much with the human resources and even like the talent acquisition side of things and making sure, as you were talking about, like understanding the metrics of like how people are getting to apply, right? And what are they seeing before they apply, right? So can you just speak towards maybe how that may have helped you as far as mindset in the role that you're in now as, a brand manager?
I don't know what other word to use besides blessed to be able to have brought my career back into a space of of where my passion was and is people, and within that human resources space. So, being on the talent strategy team is so exciting, and so but at the same rate, so much of my healthcare experience has been within consumer marketing. There is so much that in the 10 years between my degree and my internship and where human resources is now, there's still so much to learn. But I also think a lot of career growth and where you think you want to go and how you get there is, I feel like I could talk to so many different adults and how they got to where they are and ask them, was it the path you had planned?
Right.
And most of them say no.
No,
It's
right.
amazing to talk to people when the path is yes.
Yeah.
But, with me, I think a lot of it was learning how to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. But, when I went to Ecuador, I had very little experience teaching. And then I was teaching, and I had peers and bosses, and I had to speak to them professionally in a foreign language that I spoke like a preschooler. So even within that space of everyday living and being open to vulnerabilities, has only helped to prepare me in that space of I'm ready to come back into within this space, and I'm ready to be vulnerable and to learn that gap of that 10 years between education and where I am right now. And I know that the skills that I have learned through marketing and healthcare marketing have come into so much play into what I do now.
So Tracey, as you mentioned, this podcast has really been testament to a lot of people not ending up where they planned, right? That God had a different plan for their life, and better than what one could have imagined usually. But one thing that you talked about was storytelling, and how storytelling is such a big aspect to your role. And obviously, that's what we get to do here, is be able to highlight and share other stories. And it's Advent Health is just a storytelling organization because we like to focus on our team members and to show them as individuals, as you said. So if you could just talk about a story that has really impacted you or that sticks with you that you've been able to help amplify through your role.
Yeah. So, I mean, our team members' stories ultimately are what shape our brand image. They 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 give life to our employer brand. Um, so, listening to the stories of uh, a veteran who shares how he ended up joining the nursing team that saved his life, or to a patient care tech who applied with us when she was homeless and found inclusion and opportunity within our team members and within the leaders that were supporting her. Um, Listening to uh, the stories of team members who have a family and are responsible for teams here, are some of our our leaders, um, and how um, moving within a space where they use the tools that we have to better maintain their life work balance. Um, Life skills, the coaching and resources that we have to help better be able to care for their families and care for their teams. Hearing those stories is yes, it's inspiring to me, but I also know that those are the stories that we need to amplify the most, that we need to share the most, because, like I said, it's what truly brings our employer brand to life. What our employer brand is.
Yeah.
And so, what emerging trends in employer branding do you find most exciting, and how is Advent Health preparing to incorporate these trends in the future?
We are in a space of evolution with our employer brand, and we're in a journey. So the next space that we really are moving into is one of brand ambassadorship. So again, taking our team members and making sure that they have they are recognized as ambassadors, and they can speak to their peers, speak within their influence within social media, to be able to share their stories, share if they go to one of our hiring events and what that experience is like, talking to other team members, and really making sure that they have a space to help develop the employer brand because they're our greatest cheerleaders.
No, I appreciate you sharing that, and I think that is, the future, especially because even with social media now, you can see. I mean, every major company has some type of influencer or ambassador that they have, whether it's like affiliate programs with or things like that. So that's from what I'm hearing, that's kind of similar to what we're hoping to have as well.
Yes, yes, exactly. We recognize that our team members are going to be our greatest asset. They are within the walls and within our taking care of our patients, and they are the greatest influencers of helping other candidates who would want to consider us see their place, because that's so much of what it is saying is asking yourself, well, where would I fit in there?
Right.
How would I fit in? Do I feel like I would fit in?
Yeah.
So to be able to answer that question for them before they get in the door, really is that space where our team members and being able to have someone like ambassadors, to help guide them through that discernment, um, is invaluable to us.
Yeah, that feels like the best natural progression, as you said, to what's next for our employer brand. And Tracy, thank you so much for this insight. Thank you for sharing more about your career journey as well and those formative years being in Ecuador. I mean, I think about that and how challenging that must have been. And I'm sure, as you said, you didn't see where you were going, but what a wonderful spot you're in. You feel like you are exactly where you're supposed to be, and that is a wonderful thing to be able to share. Thank you so much for listening to the Whole Career Podcast. We hope that you subscribe and listen to us on your favorite platform, and feel free to watch us on YouTube as well. And until next time, take care.